Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Dynasty Rewind YouTube channel. We have a very special celebration today. We hit 2.5 thousand subscribers. Big round of applause for us. Not so much a celebration of us, though. It is a celebration of you, our loyal viewers and subscribers. And for that, we thank you. And that's why we're here this morning. We don't live stream very often. So when we do, we try to do it with a gusto. So I'm going to bring everybody in shortly. Again, I'm Michael Bauer, host and founder of the Dynasty Rewind. So let's bring everybody in one at a time, do some brief introductions. I want to say good morning to Chev and Nooney. Chev was one of our original co-hosts. It was me, Chev, and Garrett Price. Chev, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I mean, it's like 79 degrees right now in Arizona, so you can't beat that, boys. And it's fun to celebrate, answer a lot of questions today. Super excited to be here, man.
Yeah, we're going to do it up. So next up, we have Phil Porkman Simmons. Pork was supposed to be kind of a bonus host, and then he kept showing up every week. So here he is. We got Pork on the mic. What's up, Pork?
What it do, Mike? It's just a great morning.
I don't
great
know
morning.
What it do?
It's a blessing to have 2.5K. I appreciate all you guys that like, subscribe, and listen to Mike's terrible takes every week. But it's a wonderful day. No, Mike is a great guy. I'm glad he brought me in, and we became best of friends with Chev and the rest of the crew. And I'm glad you just watch me grow on this channel from week to week. And it's a wonderful time.
I just want to say that he's calling me out for terrible takes. He takes George Pickens at the 104. We got joining us. We got Nate Christian. Nate was the last addition to the quote unquote regular podcast crew. Nate, good morning.
Good morning. There's something special about doing YouTube and hanging out with you guys when I have my coffee rather than a adult beverage.
Yeah, I got my coffee rolling right here too. Got a lovely Mayan blend. And now we are going to bring in, he's not on the podcast all the time. And here's the thing, I'm not bringing him in yet. He could do it himself, but Bob, don't you dare. So Bob is the man. He's the man of the hour. Like, listen, when he first started here at the Dynasty Rewind, we had like 200-300 some subs on the YouTube channel,
if even,
right? Something like that. It was minuscule. We hit 1,000 in December. We did that live stream. So between now and then, 1.5K. That's fantastic. The growth is attributed to this man right here. We got Bob Van Duzer. We're just going to give him a little round of applause. He hates when I use sound drops. They know, because guess what? I'm the host. So Bob is the man. Bob is the guy behind the scenes that makes this all happen. Bob, good morning and welcome.
Morning. Excited to be here, dive in with y'all, celebrate this momentous occasion. And, here's to 2.5 more.
Yeah.
And many more.
Yeah. So our next live stream of this magnitude will be at 5,000 and then 10,000. And then after that, our egos will be so big, we just won't be doing live streams anymore. I think we could all agree with that, right?
No.
Yeah. Bob is a man of the people. Look at the comments. They love Bob.
I try.
Yeah.
I
Big
try.
Bob guy.
It's great. Yeah. They must not work with Bob behind the scenes.
Whatever.
Bob, I love you. We have a question here. Do you want to get into that first?
Yes, sir. Which there's a couple we got already. Let's go ahead and dive into this one. Actually came up before we even started. Rookie tight end for this year and long term, Daniel Bellinger or Jacob Ferguson. Mike, I know you're a big Daniel Bellinger fan.
Yeah.
Why don't you take this one?
Let me first start by saying, I believe at one point I said, if anybody is hyping up Daniel Bellinger, to discredit that person and don't follow them. My thought process there was, if you are hyping up Daniel Bellinger as a number one overall tight end in this class, you're doing something wrong. You need to reassess your process. That being said, seeing where Daniel Bellinger went made me reassess my process. So it's important as an analyst that I do that. And it's important as a fantasy player that you constantly be reassessing your process as well. And that's why I'm doing that. So eating some proverbial crow, I'm going to take Bellinger. Nate, you put a tweet in the group chat the other day. He's running with the ones right now. And, the Giants passing game is somewhat anemic and has been the last few seasons. So Bellinger could be a really good security blanket. The guy's pretty good on screens too. To be honest with you, if you watch some SDSU film, you'll see a guy named Greg Bell as well that should have been drafted and wasn't. Pork and I love him. The dude's a hammer. Don't shake your head, Nate. But Bellinger's pretty good on screens, man. And I think he could, in that offense, Brian Dable coming in from Buffalo, I think he could be something. Now, am I saying that he's going to be the next Travis Kelce? No. But you need some sort of competitive advantage on your opponents. And if tight end is a position that you could do that, then he's definitely worth a taxi squash, as I like to call it. By the way, need to get Anthony on making that taxi squash
Taxi
t-shirt.
squash.
So that's my thought. I'm going to go Bellinger on that one.
Yep. I think I'm in the same boat. I will say I like Ferguson as a stash, especially because you have a definitive line of when you should probably cut him. If they re-sign Schultz and you need a body to cut, Ferguson's an easy pick. So I definitely prefer Bellinger over Ferguson right now, but that could change. But anything else to add before we move on to the next one, boys?
No, I like Daniel Bellinger too now. I have become a fan, so I'm all over it, especially with him running with the ones.
Yeah, I mean, as long
Good
as
deal.
Kenny G doesn't move the tight end, I think Bellinger should be all right this year.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I agree with that totally.
Stranger
All
things
right,
happen,
so-
have they not?
God, they have. So when you're contending, what's a baseline number of usable running backs and wide receivers you would like to have on your roster? It's a tough one, honestly. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously depends on your lineup settings, but I would say you want double the amount you have to start. So if you start 2 running backs, ideally you want 4 startable running backs because that gives you enough to deal with injury and a bye week. Now, it's hard to have 4 usable running backs, especially with how shallow that talent is. But if you can have 4 and then say you have 6 wide receivers worth starting, you're going to be okay. And that's why I like having 2 tight ends worth starting. I mean, obviously you're not going to have Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce, but if you have Mark Andrews and then maybe like a Mike Gesicki or like Cole Kmet, kind of like that second tier kind of tight end guy, and then same thing with quarterback. You want like a top quarterback like a Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, but then also you maybe have a guy like Matthew Stafford as your backup. That's a high end backup right there. So those are like the teams when you have those high end backups that you could start and feel happy about, that you're going to be a contender for sure.
Yeah, I think you just want like those 2 extra pieces just in case something bad happens. We've seen the running backs. I mean, they go down quick and then you are in big trouble if you don't have any depth. So I think definitely having those 2 is where I kind of lean as well, just in case it all goes to hell and you have COVID players as well. I mean, hopefully COVID's done with in the NFL. It sounds like they're not going to be testing very much. So we might be out of that. But yeah, 2, I think is definitely most needed if you really want to be secure in your depth and going for the contending championship.
Yeah, and I think we also need to define the definition of a usable running back and a receiver as well, because I know a lot of people are still basing everything off of a 3-down back. But a usable back is also a 3rd-down back too, because we know how Mike, when he loved his J.D. McKissick, because like, hey, you got him for $2 in Fab, but he's close to you when he's winning you some leagues. So just also make sure that you have those type of guys that are usable running backs for your teams, because they will win you some weeks to get you into the dance. So when you do have some injuries and them guys come back, you do well. So I do agree with Nate though. Like, just try to have a double the amount that you can start. That's possible. I know some weeks when you deal with buys and injuries, that could be a little difficult, but just try to make sure, scan that waiver wire, see what you can get, possibly make some small deals, buy low candidates that you see that you might have, you can slide on your roster and play them from week to week.
Right on. Anything else to add, Mike, or no? All right, cool.
Yes,
Moving
brother.
on to the next one. Our friend Dane has been killing it in comments on YouTube a ton lately. So if I'm in a rebuild, would you trade Mac Jones, Elijah Moore, and Saquon if it can turn into Kyle Pitts and Trevor Lawrence? Is that a close move, or do I need to add to it, in your opinion? Thanks, guys. What do you guys think here?
I kind of like this in a rebuild. I think Mac Jones and Trevor Lawrence I have pretty similarly ranked. I like Trevor Lawrence probably more long-term, but Mac Jones had the better rookie year. So I'm kind of calling that a wash either way. And then if I'm just thinking Elijah Moore and Saquon for Pitts in a rebuild, that's the easy smash accept for Pitts. So I think that's a great trade if you can turn that into Pitts and Trevor Lawrence. You might need to add more though, because it's hard to get people to move off Pitts.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking the same thing with Pitts is probably like one of the top 5 dynasty assets right now, especially if you're a young team and you want a cornerstone piece for what might be the rest of your dynasty league, with how quick some leagues can fold. It's a pretty huge piece to try to, move off, get somebody to move off of. People have been coming for my Pitts shares, and I'm like, sorry, dude, I can't find a price that I'm willing to take to sell the guy. So, but yeah, I think that's a fine deal. It's always tough kind of moving a running back, but with Saquon, you never know. But especially if you're in a rebuild, Saquon's not going to help you that much longer anyway. So, anything else to add, Mike or Chev?
I love the deal if you can get Pitts. Do it.
Yeah. Especially if it's a tight end premium as well. You can get Pitts in a tight end premium and seeing how young he is. I like that. I like that Pitts and Trevor Lawrence side for sure.
If it's a
Mac
premium,
Jones,
you're not getting Pitts for that trade, I don't think.
That's what I'm saying.
All that Pitts.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's not a tight end premium, just give me Kyle Pitts. You know what I mean? By all means, give me the elite tight end with the upside.
He is the number 5 player in my cornerstone rankings, like foundational rankings, like guys I want long term in a rebuild. He is number 5. So Bob, you're right, top 5 guy.
Look at me, I'm so good. All right. So how long have we all been playing and commissioning dynasty leagues? Me, I believe this will be year 9 for me. I've been commissioning for probably 6 or 7 of those years. So it's been a minute ever since I was like 18. I started doing fantasy when I was like 16, and then I started doing dynasty when I was 18 or 19. So I'm 28 now. Fun fact. So how about you guys, Nate?
Yeah, so I'm a bit newer to dynasty. I've been playing fantasy football since I was it's probably been like 12, 13 years now. But dynasty, more like about 4 years. I think I'm going into my 4th or 5th year. I was playing in a lot of keeper leagues before that with like 2 or 3 keepers, but never a full dynasty league. And most of my experience has actually just been in scouting. I was doing a lot of NFL scouting before playing dynasty leagues. And I was like, well, I can actually use my ability to scout to play dynasty leagues and make it, somewhat worthwhile. So that's why I like Debbie, because I just like scouting. Who cares about fantasy football?
I would think that the people in the comments do, Nate. But I agree.
Just a little.
So I've been playing fantasy football for about 16 years total. Dynasty is about 5 years, and I started playing in my first dynasty league and commissioning at the same time. 10 out of 10 not recommended. Don't do that. Play in one first. My recommendation to you, if you want to get into it, start with like a free league or like a $10 or $20 league. Don't go for the high stakes leagues right away, because you're going to make mistakes along the way. Look, I mean, we've all been playing for a while too. We're still going to make mistakes every year. It just happens. So dip your toes in, come to the right place for information, and go from there.
So I've been playing fantasy since I was 12 years old, so about 22 years now. But I've been doing dynasty leagues for maybe around the same time, around Nate, like 4 or 5 years. I pretty much started once I started the Dynasty Rewind, because it was mostly redrafts, and now there's pretty much no redrafts anymore. I just do like a home league. That's just it. But I don't commission any leagues because I just feel like it's just too much work for me. I don't have enough time, because some people are just, overbearing, and you make a dumb trade and then people trying to come in your DMs and try to do all this stuff. And me personally, I don't have time for it. I'll jump in the league, but I'm not commissioning any. But I've definitely love dynasty leagues, and it's been my life for 4 or 5 years now, and it's never going away pretty much.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, commissioning is not fun at some point, so I don't envy any of the commissioners, man. I mean, that is a tough job. I do it, and it's hard to get everybody engaged. It's hard to do all that stuff. So if you're a commissioner out there, if you're just a player in Dynasty or fantasy football, you better thank your commissioner every stinking year, because they don't want to deal with all the BS either. I promise you. They just want to do it for fun. But I've been playing Dynasty for about 6 years now. I started up a league. We drafted in person. Then I bounced and moved to Arizona. So we're actually going to do an in-person draft at the end of this month. So super excited for that. Been playing for about 12 years now, just fantasy football. I remember the first draft I ever drafted. I drafted AJ Green when at my dad's draft party that he was having with a bunch of people, and the way they drafted, they had numbers on the bottom of beers, and I was like 12 years old at that point, so I couldn't drink it or anything like that. So fantasy football, it's got a special place in my heart. It's kind of how me and my pops connect. For me being away now, it's just something we do, and something that has just been an awesome time with these guys, man. It's been so fun to just learn and grow. I'm sure there's an episode coming up of what we've learned throughout our time in Dynasty. So, little teaser there.
Can I just add one thing before we move on?
Yes.
If you're thinking of commissioning for the first time, get a co-commissioner.
Yeah.
Somebody that you trust that's done it before to help you. I actually started co-commissioning with somebody. His name is Scott Sidlow. He's on Dynasty Junkies. And what I've learned from co-commissioning with him in the last 2 years has been more than I learned in my entire time as a commissioner. The way he runs things is fantastic. Also, if you're doing it online, use LeagueSafe. Don't use your Venmo. Don't use your PayPal. LeagueSafe for nothing. It protects everything, and it protects you from being on the hook for any fees or anything like that, because the government is cracking down on billionaires by making sure that anyone that makes over $600 a year has to pay taxes on it. So just it's a way to protect yourself as the commissioner and protect the pot for all the players. Use LeagueSafe. They're not endorsing us, but if they'd like to, dynastyrewind@gmail.com, we'd be more than happy to listen.
Hey, government, y'all have more stuff to do than stealing my $600 I get in Venmo. I promise you that.
Yeah.
Facts.
Somebody at government on Twitter and tell them to back off. You have to do that for me, would you?
Get on that.
All
Does
right.
the government have a Twitter? Like, can I just add them? That's a good.
I think you can at IRS. Pretty sure.
Just
We'll worry about
coders.
that later.
Okay.
All right. So Colin back again. Has Gronk, Ertz, and Dulcich. Is it worth to add K-Dot and just in case Gronk is retired? I think absolutely.
Yes.
Why not?
Yeah, he's probably pretty cheap. Might as well go get him. I would also say if you have the room and you're worried about Gronk and you have K-Dot, if you have the room, might as well add Cameron Brate too, because he's out there running with the ones right now, and he's not flashy, he's not a sexy guy, but if he's the number one guy there, because I don't think K-Don's going to jump Cameron Brate year one.
No.
So if Gronk's not there, Cameron Brate is going to be the tight end for Tom Brady. So keep an eye on him.
For the record, government does have a Twitter. It's just a leadership council, though. 85 followers.
Unbelievable.
In case anyone's wondering.
All right. Dominic chiming in. Rate my Dynasty startup team, 12-team, Superflex side and premium. Herbert, Barkley, DJ Moore, Schultz, Sky Moore, David Bell, I assume, Michael Pittman, Garrett Wilson, Isaiah Spiller, and Davis Mills. Went for a young team. Any suggestions for improvements off the rip?
Well, I hope you have another running back to pair up with Barkley to start.
That's my thoughts as well.
Yeah,
But,
that's going to
I
be
mean-
big. Go ahead.
I think you definitely have a lot of young pieces that Garrett Wilson, I love. Pittman, I think, is going to be really successful this season and moving forward. I think he's just a guy, third year going in. I mean, he's been productive, but now he's kind of the vocal point, it feels like, in that offense. So I think that would be huge for him. But yeah, I mean, I like it. Anytime you can get Justin Herbert too, I love that guy. He's got incredible weapons around him. The offensive line is great. They just seem to build that offense perfectly for him. So, I mean, I like it. I think it looks pretty good. I don't know. You got Davis Mills maybe as your second quarterback. Don't hate it, but who knows how long. If he has a bad season, he's probably getting a replacement picked up for him. So that's the tough part with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this team a B-. I think they've got some strong young pieces, especially at wide receiver, like Chev was saying. But this team doesn't look like it's going to compete this year. Like, just being honest, so you might want to move off Barkley and pick up two pieces of young wide receivers, or maybe some 2023 draft picks. Because if you can get some 2023 draft picks, you can turn this team around really quick. And I would say go ahead and buy into the rebuild. Don't, half-ass it, because if you do, you're just going to keep yourself as a middle team. If you go ahead and trade off your veterans and go for the 2023 picks, say you have, you end up with like 5 or 6 picks between the first and the second round next year, you can turn your team around in 1 year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed
I agree with
100%.
all that. I like going young too. To be honest with
It's
you,
going to be a really good class.
it is.
Can't
Yeah.
tell you enough.
Yeah, but I'm fine as well moving away from Saquon, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
DJ Moore, he's a guy that I'd hold. You know, his value is
Mhm.
kind of all over the place. And I love the Dalton Schultz pick too. I feel like Dalton Schultz is really overlooked in the tight end landscape because everybody wants Kyle Pitts, everyone's Travis Kelce and George Kittle. I'd rather have Dalton Schultz than George Kittle, especially at their ADP. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but George Kittle, he gets banged up a lot, especially if Trey Lance takes over. Excuse me. We don't know what Kittle's going to be. So I like this team a lot. I love Pittman as well. But yeah, move Barkley if you can. I wouldn't do it right now, to be honest with you. I would wait until after week 1 or 2. Granted that he has a good couple weeks, let him put some, show outs a little bit and then go from there.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple players when we look at dynasty rosters that aren't worth trading for or trading away until closer to the season. Usually they're veterans. They're not going to be at peak value until people have to start setting their lineups. So those guys, you want to hold on to unless you get a great offer during the offseason.
Good deal.
Man.
Isaiah Spiller or Cook at 110. Nate is going to say, is Jahan Dotson available?
Neither.
Neither, yeah. I think neither would be my answer. I think it's reaching on both of them, to be honest with you. I think if you go a receiver at the 110, I think that's the perfect spot for him. But if you had to pick, I'm thinking probably Spiller for me because I'm just not the highest on Cook personally. We've seen production from the backups and I'm about to say San Diego. Thanks, Mike. The Los Angeles Chargers from Joshua Kelly to even like a Kalen Balazs, who's actually has some type of fantasy production from that backup there. So I think Isaiah Spiller has more of an upside there for that offense than a James Cook in Buffalo for me, because I think people are just underselling the Devin Singletary there. He's actually a good running back who gets the job done. They're just looking for a pass catching back there. So I think it's Isaiah Spiller for me, personally.
Yeah, I think you look at wide receiver. George Pickens is probably there too. I don't hate that. But I think I'm going with James Cook, honestly, man. I think he has a little bit more upside than Spiller at the moment. Who knows how long Eckler's going to keep going for that team. I do like that they have Justin Herbert there, but we got Josh Allen in Buffalo. I think I'm going to roll with James Cook here. I just feel like he's going to have more production early on than Spiller is at this point, just knowing what we know at the moment.
So the last 2 mock drafts that I did at the 110, one was Jahan Dotson, the other one was Chris Olave. And to be just completely transparent, I don't care if you need, and this is no disrespect, I don't care if you need a running back. I'm going to draft a wide receiver instead of overdrafting a running back. Drafting for need is how you get into trouble. Draft the best player available and you trade for need when you can and don't appear too desperate. Look, Chris Olave or Jahan Dotson, again, I believe that their ceilings could be higher than Isaiah Spiller or James Cook, especially James Cook. And I agree with Pork. I'm not the highest on James Cook. The Buffalo backfield, for all we know, could be extremely nebulous, a lot like the Patriots backfield has been the last couple of years. It could be a best ball play only. You don't want to have to plug these guys into a starting lineup every single week. So maybe the best thing to do is just stay away, to be completely honest with you. And Isaiah Spiller was a 4th-round draft pick, just like Joshua Kelly, just like Larry Roundtree. So while we believe in the talent, until we see it, it's hard to say. When I'm drafting at the 110, I want a guy that I know from possibly day one I could put into my starting lineup, and neither of those guys are it. So, but if I had to gun to my head, pick one, it would be Isaiah Spiller. But look at the wide receivers that are available. And Chev, I got to disagree with you, man. Pickens ain't going to be there. Not if you're in the league with Pork, man.
Yo, Patrick, though, that picture is fire, bro. I love that picture.
So
but if you can get Chris Olave at the 110,
gimme.
Fire me north
all day. So this one I think is an awesome question because it feeds into what often happens in the offseason, which people don't know what to do with, like offseason hype, offseason news. What do we buy into? What do we not buy into? This for me is severely interesting because of the fact that Treylon Burks decided to not overly prepare for the combine. It was, well documented that he chose to be like, nah, they know what I can do. Now he comes into camp apparently out of shape, not looking great. Are any red flags going up? Nate, I'm going to kick it to you first because I know you're the highest on Burks out of the bunch. So, Nate, what do you think about this? Is this a red flag for you finally? Are you worried at all? Dive on in.
I'm not there yet. At this point, I remember last year when we were talking about how Jamar Chase couldn't catch the ball anymore after a year off.
Different.
And look how that turned out. I understand it's different, Bob. I understand. But it is similar in the same vein because it's OTAs. We're not even in training camp yet. The NFL is hard. Every single year there are a couple players that fail the conditioning test for the Ravens because it is intense. And then they figure it out. They just get conditioned. It is hard to play in the NFL. It is hard to be conditioned at the level that some of these coaches want them to be. I bet you Mike Vrabel is a very intense coach who wants his players to be very conditioned compared to maybe a different coach who is a bit more lackadaisical with their conditioning program. And he's coming from Arkansas, which is in the SEC, but is not one of the top programs in the nation. So, maybe their conditioning test wasn't nearly as, hard or difficult. I'm sure the Titans have a very difficult conditioning test. Look at their players. They've had A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry. These guys are top athletes. Treylon Burks is going to get there. I have no worries about him. Just give him a couple weeks to get settled in. They said he has some asthma issues too. He's working through. So it's also allergy season. My allergies are going crazy. Treylon Burks might have allergies too.
It's also summertime. I mean, it's a little hotter out now these days. So definitely see that. He didn't run his 40 at the pro day either. So I don't know if that is a red flag or whatnot either. Maybe he would just feel like he was conditioned then either. I don't know. Maybe that's the case or maybe it's not. But, I mean, you got to be a little worrisome. But right now, nobody's producing fantasy points at this point. You can't take too much into it. I mean, first practice, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Also, we never know with college players what they're going through because colleges don't release information. Yeah. So, Treylon Burks at the end of the season, maybe, he had an illness or something that, might have messed with this. And I'm not trying to make excuses for the guy because I do think he should have tested better than he did. But I'm just saying that there's so much unknown here. I'm not going to get worried until I actually have something substantial to be worried about.
Yeah. And let's not forget, like Nate said, Jamar Chase can't catch. Treylon Burks is fat. And at one point in time, we were told that Justin Jefferson is only a slot receiver and KJ Osborne or BC Johnson is ahead of him.
BC Johnson was over him.
BC Johnson.
So
nonsense, man.
It's a grain of salt. You're at the point in the offseason where we are nitpicking every little thing, and people are doing this to push their narrative. Treylon Burks is fat, which is why you should listen to me when I say so-and-so is actually the wide receiver one, and subscribe, rate, and review while you're here watching all my videos. I know I do the same thing. That being said, I'm not worried about Treylon Burks. Chev is right. Nate, you guys are both right. It's summer. Yeah, and look at what these guys just went through in the pre-draft process. They're tired, okay? After an NFL season, you have months off. After the college season, you're training for the combine. You're doing a pro day. You do all these different things. So it's just go, 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 go. So there's a little bit of that rookie fatigue. I'm not worried. Don't panic. Like these guys said, it is June. You're not setting a lineup. And this goes to trading too. When people are trying to force something on you, like you don't have an RB2, bro, I don't have to set a lineup for 3 months. Let me worry about that in August. The last week of August, I'll start worrying about that. Don't push your crap on me now. Don't panic. It's June. Enjoy the summer. Relax. And we'll get, we'll get into panic mode closer to the season, okay? Take a deep breath.
Yeah. And I was actually going through my notes the other day, and I found a note from August 2020, and it was training camp standouts. So these are guys that in the 2020 offseason – we're standing out in training camp. Beat reporters are going crazy. Listen to this list, okay? With 2 years hindsight now. BC Johnson, Paris Campbell, Steven Sims, Robert Tonyan, Jerick McKinnon, and Colin Johnson.
Hey, Colin Johnson, I feel seen on that one.
How'd that list turn out? All those training camp standouts.
1 out of 6. 1 out of 6.
There you go.
I mean, training camp's important. It's fun, but don't take it too seriously. We need to see these guys play on an NFL field.
And give him a shot.
Every year in training camp, Jalen Reagor makes circus catches.
Can we not bring that name up?
I'm sorry.
Give me adjective, bro.
I'm just saying. Chev, apparently you need more coffee according to Gator.
Bro, I would have a whole pot right now if I could. I promise you, Gator.
Thoughts
Bob, what we
on
got?
AJ Green? Thoughts on AJ Green with D Hop out for a few weeks? I really like the AJ Green pickup or usage right now. Been picking him up in my best ball drafts real late,
Yeah, best ball. Why
and
not?
he should easily be, one of the features to that offense alongside Marquise Brown, as long as he's healthy. Obviously, not the AJ Green of old, but a guy you can probably plug in a lineup if you're, say you're out of Chris Godwin early in the season, or something to that effect. I don't see why not. I mean, I'm positive, like I said, as long as he's healthy, why not? Especially if he's out on the wire or a cheap buy for a third or fourth round pick or something like that. Have that, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be good the first 6 weeks of the season. I think he'll do all right. I think he's gonna be kind of like a Mike Williams, where there's gonna be games where he has a big game possibly, and then there's gonna be a game where he's got one catch for 10 yards. I think that's a possibility for his outlook. And I like Rondell more this season. I think he's going to be used a lot to start off the season as well. Him and Marquise Brown are probably going to get peppered with Ertz. Ertz is a guy that we love, I believe, on the Dynasty Rewind. So he'll be getting a lot of targets early on. But yeah, AJ Green, if you have to play him, I don't hate it. Just know it could be like a circus where you get 7 catches for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then you get a week where he gets 1 catch for 8 yards. So just knowing that. But best ball, I mean, he's great to start off the season. You don't have to really worry about him putting him in your lineup. If he gets enough points, he's going to be in. If he doesn't, he's not going to be in. So, I mean, it's super exciting for best ball, but just be worrisome of that 1 catch game. You can see that happen.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to happen. I think I will be leaning more towards the Hollywood Brown, Rondell Moore side of the equation, just due to the PPR aspect in fantasy football. But if you do have to start an AJ Green, I'm totally fine with that. And like Bob said, if you can get him for a third or a fourth round pick because he's an older guy, receivers, type of receivers that I like to acquire on my fantasy teams, hey, go for it and play it and make it work. But if it comes down to a Rondell Moore, we've seen how explosive he was in college. And I think just moving on to the next level, he will acclimate to that. I think it just took a little bit more time last year because he is on the smaller side. But if you get this guy into space, he's super explosive. Now, if you put him next to a Marquise Brown, his offense is going to be bananas. But then if you forget about him, AJ Green is going over the top and possibly getting you a touchdown a game as when D Hop is out. So yeah, give me I like the AJ Green there. Just like Chev said, is going to be a Mike Williams type thing. Or when they say Mike Evans was droppable because he was getting 1 touchdown for 1 yard, it's going to be weeks like that, but we'll see.
Thoughts on Saquon Barkley? Could this be the season? I'm assuming that he hops back on the train. Consider he's a free agent after this year, and the Giants suck. Well, that's rude, but I think everybody knows if you've tuned into the channel,
Sorry,
I'm pretty high on Saquon Barkley this year. Whenever we see guys come back from the ACL tear, usually the first year back, not great. Dalvin Cook is a prime example. Came back year after the ACL tear, struggled with injuries, hammies, other knee issues, so on and so forth. But the year back after that is usually a better bounce back season. And, the Giants weren't good when he was really good. I know the big question mark or the big issue with Saquon is that when he was really good, he had Eli and statue quarterback versus a mobile quarterback in Daniel Jones. Okay, fine. But he actually had more targets with Daniel Jones at quarterback than Eli Manning. And I know they're using a different playbook. It's a lot easier scheme and system, stuff like that. But it's one of those things where if Barkley is going to be back on the horse and be good, it's going to be this year or it's never going to be. And I don't know if I love that he's a free agent after this year. Yes, he can choose where he goes, possibly if he doesn't get tagged or anything like that. But the thing is second contract running backs don't have an awesome track record. It's kind of, they're good for that first contract, and then after that,
that's not
who
true.
knows? And is anybody really going to get
Elliott,
paid?
Todd Gurley, DeMarco Murray?
Okay, so thank you. Okay, that's sarcasm. Thank you.
I was like, man, I really hope Bob caught that.
Right.
I was about to tear him up.
I was about to go off on you. But yeah, so like I said, I've been pretty high on Barkley this entire offseason for that reason, buying that injury dip after the ACL. So I'm not sure he's a guy that if you are competing this year, great to have long term, great to have throughout the season. But if you're like, this was the guy who drafted him in the startup. If your team is not built to win this year and possibly long term, if he starts heating up right away, see you later, dude. Send him for a 23 first and something else, because you might be able to get that from a contender, especially mid to late season, whenever your trade deadline is. So, any additional thoughts on Barkley, boys?
No, man. Let's keep those questions rolling in. Let's pump out as many as we can.
We got this. Where does Pittman finish this year? What's his value versus a future first round pick? So I'm assuming 23 first. Keep trade cut has them pretty even. DLF has future one like 65% more valuable than Pittman. I can talk. Huge difference there. Any thoughts? Nate, I'm going to kick this one to you. What do you think about Pittman?
Yes. So Pittman versus the 2023 first. I'm thinking I would kind of equate Michael Pittman to like the 107 or something like that in the 2023 draft. Because I'm taking Bryce Young, I'm taking CJ Stroud, Bijan Robinson, Jackson Smith and the Jigba. I'm taking, at least another running back or two, probably over Michael Pittman next year. So if you are contending this year, Michael Pittman is worth maybe a bit more. Maybe you're only going to give him up for an early top 5 2023 first. But if you're kind of a mid team or rebuilding, I would move him for anything from early to mid. But at like a late 2023 first, you're kind of equal there. So you can kind of go either way. But I do like Pittman. Matt Ryan throwing the ball, I think, is an improvement over Carson Wentz.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
And I just put in there, Pittman finished that as the wide receiver 17 in PPR formats last year. So he was wide receiver 2.
Yeah, so, I think we can expect a similar finish this year, maybe a slightly higher end wide receiver 2. Personally, I'm not
just looking what's ahead of him real quick. Tyler Lockett, Chris Godwin, I could see coming down. DK Metcalf, Jalen Waddle with Tyreek Hill coming to town. So there's a possibility that he bumps up too. Hunter Renfrow, now that Devontae Adams is there, he could be a wide receiver 1. It's very possible with Matt Ryan coming to town.
He's like wide receiver 10 or 12 or something like that at the end of the year.
Yeah. Very good possibility, especially with T.Y. Hilton gone.
What about Alec Pierce?
He took targets, though. When he was on the field, he took targets, so we do have to factor that in. That's, you know what I mean?
What's a good down-tier trade from JT? So moving from JT running back 1 to another running back and then getting something else on top. What do we think about this one? Are we trying to down tier into like tier 2, or are we trying to down tier a little further and get more picks and assets back? I think it kind of depends on what you want to do with your team. Because if you want to stay competitive with JT, you want to get somebody just a Najee, DeAndre Swift, probably end list, and then maybe you're getting a second and maybe something else on top. If you want to go full rebuild, you get as many first round picks as you can and you deal with it. Go ahead. Mike, I think you were going to say something.
I'll take this one. So on Fantasy Pros, Jonathan Taylor finishes the running back 1 right ahead of Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler was a lot of receiving yards and receiving touchdowns while he finished number 2. Right here at number 17, if I'm tearing down from Jonathan Taylor, I'm happy to go with Javonte Williams plus a little bit for Jonathan Taylor. I think that is a really beneficial trade. You're still going to get a standout running back. I think Melvin Gordon's involvement will be less in the offense this year than it was last year. I understand he's still there. But if you're looking to tear down Javonte plus, I'm happy with that because around him, DeAndre Swift, he's had some injury issues. Dalvin Cook, injury issues. Damian Harris, you know what I mean? We really want that. No. I'm staying away from Nick Chubb just because the Browns right now are a bit of a cluster. You know what? I mean, we got Josh Jacobs. You could probably get him. He's a little bit of a tier down. He finished at running back 12 last year. So there's some good value out there to get tier down plus for Jonathan Williams. And depending on how far you tier down, it could be asset plus plus.
Jonathan Williams. I don't think I want Jonathan Williams anytime soon.
Is that 2025 class coming out
Been
there?
a while.
Sorry, Javonte Williams. Forgive me. Sorry, it's early. I haven't
There
had
we
enough
go.
coffee yet. Come on.
Well, I'm with you on the Javante though. Javante
Yeah,
and
that's
the
a good
piece.
pick, yeah.
That I think that's definitely the move there if you can do that. And I think you can also remove the narrative of the Melvin Gordon's back, so it's going to be the same thing as last year. Javante showed that he's a very very good running back at the next level. I just think they just needed a veteran presence there, and they just needed a backup just in case Javante does get hurt. But Javante is that guy.
Yeah, and they barely brought Gordon back. It wasn't like they signed him to a 3-year deal the second his contract was up. It was they waited most of the entirety of the offseason free agency session to go and re-sign the guy and didn't, sink any real money into him. So definitely think Javante is the one. Gordon will be there as that. I'm sure he'll be an annoying vulture at times, but for the most part, I think Javante is going to be just fine. Probably still overhyped to what people will expect out of him, in all honesty, expecting him to be the RB1 of the world ever all time in fantasy. But moving on to another one, just to get a gauge on the 2023 first round picks, who are some of the big name guys you'd be willing to part with straight up for a 2023 first round pick? 2023 class is already super hyped, looking for the line. What kind of player? Nate, I'm going to kick this to you because I think, you're obviously the most in touch right now with the 2023 class. When are you, looking at like the startup draft, for example? Like, where are you willing to be like, all right, I'll trade this guy for a 23 first, in like early, mid, late, things like that?
Yeah, it's a hard question. It depends on your team. I'm assuming if you're trying to get rid of a 2023 first, you probably consider yourself a contender. So you're expecting your pick to be at least a mid, if not a late 2023 first. And at that point, you can kind of take advantage of the 2023 class hype. But you want to value these first still. So like if I'm trading one of my first next year, I want a top player at that position. I want like a top 12 player at that position. I want a top 12 running back. I want a top 12 wide receiver. Because I think you're going to get players of that talent level in next year's draft class. So, if you're looking for a running back, you can move a first for a guy like Travis Etienne. I would consider moving a late 2023 first for Travis Etienne or J.K. Dobbins. If you need a running back for your team, if you need a wide receiver, maybe you can move, a late 2023 first for a guy like Michael Pittman, or maybe you can, use in a package deal to get a guy like DK Metcalf or Jalen Waddle, now that the consensus is a little bit lower on those guys, even though they're still young and talented. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. If I'm looking at quarterback, it kind of starts at Justin Fields and goes up from there. He's probably like the lowest quarterback I'm willing to trade for with a 2023 first, because we do have Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud in next year's class, plus probably another guy sneaks in at some point.
Would you be trading the 2023 first now, though? I feel like it's pretty hyped, but I feel like it could get more hyped, honestly.
The question is it going to get more hype between now and the season? Because I'm assuming you want a player for the season. So is it going to be more hype?
True.
I think now would be the time to make that trade, because I think the closer we get to the season, we're going to start not thinking about the draft next year. Yeah. We're going to be thinking of, actually setting lineups and scoring fantasy points. But right now, this year's draft is still fresh in our minds. So we're already excited about next year's draft. But once football gets starting playing again, next year's draft won't be as important at the front of our minds. So you can get those 23 first a bit cheaper in 3 or 4 months than they are right now.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That makes sense.
All right. Our Dynasty League is 2 years old. Most of us are fairly new to Dynasty. Half of us are quite engaged, but the other half doesn't seem to communicate at all. How would you go about changing that on being the commish? For me, I think the biggest thing is just always having, some activity, tuning in. If there's a big news drop, talk about it in the league. Don't be afraid to send out just random offers to whoever and put in the chat like, hey, check your DMs. Hey, do this. I think that's just one thing. A guy in Brother Pip on Sleeper, buddy of mine, who is one of the best commissioners I've ever dealt with, does a ton of stuff in the offseason. He does, mock drafts usually once a month. He'll drop a mock draft in there, even though we're not drafting till like August, which is fine. But That's another grievance for another time. And we still have kickers and defense, but another time grievance. But just random things, anything you can do to start a conversation. And the thing is that some people just aren't going to be as involved. And I think as long as they're there when the season comes and everything like that, it sucks that you can't have all 12 or however many people involved all the time. But it's just a matter of trying to start conversations, I think, is the best bit of advice I can give, and doing something in the league that actually, forces somewhat of a time devotion, I guess you could say. But any other thoughts on that from you guys at all? Any hacks on getting people to be more engaging?
I would say this: find people from the very beginning that are going to be into it just as much as you. If you want your league to be active,
that's so hard.
You have to find those people right from the get-go. If you are like worrisome that, hey, this person, I don't know, then it's probably not the right person for the league. Honestly, if you want it to be super active, that's probably my best advice that I probably learned commissioning so far.
Yep.
Big time.
What players right now have an ADP value that is too high you're looking to move and capitalize on? For me, it's DJ Moore. Honestly, we talked about him a little bit earlier. I just think he's one of the players that just has such an inflated value that, like, I traded him the other day for a 2023 first, 2023 second, and I also sent Nico Collins, and I got a 23 third, or 24 third, excuse me. So it's just one of those things. And I mean, I have like 8. He was like my wide receiver 6 on that team. So it's whatever.
Jeez.
Just a, soft flex there. But
no kidding.
So just that's one guy that I just don't think he's a guy that we're just waiting for this big, crazy, awesome season for. And everybody's still in love with DJ Moore. And I love the player, have since he came out of college. And it's just, he still doesn't have a quarterback. He's there for 3 more years. We don't have the excuse that we can say that, oh, hey, maybe next year he'll be on another team. If he is, he's been traded. Don't see that happening either. So for me, that's my probably big player that I'd be trying to move off of right now that I think you can get a pretty good return on, that I don't think is doing a whole lot for your fantasy team right now. Any other thoughts, you guys? Nate, Mike, Pork, Chev?
That's tough for me. Honestly, I feel like DeAndre Swift, he's 17th overall in DLF's ADP. And just with the injuries and Detroit, we don't really know what's happening there. You know what I mean? They're in a constant state of rebuild, perpetual rebuild. It seems like. I feel like if you can get good value for him, I'm happy to move on. And like the question we took before, tear down a little bit and get some more assets, especially if you're rebuilding. It's not going to really help you that much.
If you have Swift, hold on to him till Hard Knocks. Hard Knocks is going to boost him up. First round picks.
There you
Hard
go.
Knocks bump. There you go.
Yes, you love those.
I'm moving off Deshaun Watson. I mean, right now, keep trade cut. He's still quarterback 8. He's going to be suspended for at least a couple games. And I don't think the Browns offense is going to be as good for him fantasy-wise as when it was the Deshaun Watson show in Houston. So he's definitely talented when he's on the field, but I'm taking my chances with some other guys if I can.
Deebo Samuel is a guy too for me. Like, I don't have him anywhere, but I can see him possibly being somebody that maybe doesn't reach the same value that he had this offseason or this season, just because he doesn't want to be that guy that's running back / wide receiver. Like, he wants to be that wide receiver guy. And I still think he's going to be a good player, but I mean, there's always those health concerns with him. It seems like he's always dinged up a little bit, and he just pushes through. So Deebo could be a guy for me that if you have him, you just see what you got. I mean, what if he goes to just some terrible spot when they gets traded? Or what if he just holds out for this season? Like, that's worst case scenario if he holds out. But Deebo is a guy that I think you could look into possibly trading and feeling okay with it.
Yeah, for me, it's more like Dalvin Cook. Sorry, Bob. For me, it's Dalvin Cook. I mean, every year, you see the talent, you see the breakout games when he plays really, really well. And then bang, it's like an injury. He plays like maybe like 12, 13 games a season. But it always seems like it's at the worst time of your season where you need him the most. So for me, I'm been trying to move him for a little bit, but sometimes people don't want to pay the premium for him. But he is still a good player. So at this point right now, he's another year older. He still has that shoulder injury. Every time he puts his shoulder down and he can't get up, that's just that's one thing I also worry about. So they also have Alexander Madison. I think they're trying to use him in the slot more. I've seen some news just to get him out of the backfield, taking him hard hits. I mean, that's good for a PPR, but again, he's still going. That means he has more of more of a time to get hurt and get hurt on those routes and then get hurt in the backfield too. So I'm looking to move a Dalvin, even though I am a big fan. I'm just scared of his injury risk. So you can get younger as well, and and get a good player at the same time.
Good deal. Yeah. So has Marco chiming in, has JJ Watt in an IDP Dynasty League? Is he still worth keeping, or is he getting too old? For me, man, love the player from my home state, just 20 miles down the road from me. And I think you could probably move on if you need a spot. You could probably dump him if you have to. Deserves more from this league, and in all honesty, for how great of a player he is. But let's go ahead. Moving on. So this is interesting. So hero running back strategy. Who would you like to target for an RB2 spot? 12 teams, super flex, start at 9. So you draft one big running back in like the early rounds. Who would be like the last person you're happy having as an RB2? Personally, I think I'd be looking for somebody with some PPR upside. Maybe, like just the first person that happened to come to mind would be like Chase Edmonds right now, a guy who I think is kind of slept on a little bit. Could be a guy that does a little more than you expect this year, especially seeing that backfield is so muddled right now. So any thoughts on that? What's the last guy you'd like to have for an RB2?
Yeah, ideally maybe like a Josh Jacobs or James Conner,
Okay.
Leonard Fournette. If you're a contending team, I'm pretty happy with those guys
James
being
Leonard's good
my
if you're
RB2.
contending,
And you can get
James
those guys
Conner
pretty
for
cheap
sure.
in Dynasty because they're, not great long-term assets. But for contending team, I'd be very happy with one of those guys as my RB2.
James Conner for sure. He's the freaking man. He showed that he can hold the load last year, and when you get into the red zone, it was a James Conner show. They literally just gave him the ball, and he did the job very, very well. So yeah, it's definitely a James Conner for me for the hero RB.
Make sure you
strategy.
handcuff him though.
Yeah, you have to, even though he's not really injury prone too well, but you still have to.
James Conner is always dinged up to me, man. He's always battling something. Just watching him this year, it just looked like he was just rolling with a wrist injury or a shoulder or a leg, or it just seemed like every single week there was something. But yeah, I mean, I like James Conner, man. He's a good football player. I think even like a Miles Sanders is going pretty late. Damian Harris is going pretty late. Like, I think those guys hold value for this season for sure. I don't know what they hold later on next year, but I think this year you feel okay having those guys on your team if you're going for that hero RBs.
Waivers.
definitely waivers. Don't do a free for all.
Yeah,
because you're just gonna have
definitely waivers.
What you're gonna have is people. Well, I didn't know. I didn't have a chance, and then you have to deal with all that. Then you have to go through and make it fair for everyone and undo everything. Waivers.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I want to tell Mike he better not Mike Bowers, but Mike Whalen take Marquise Brown in the first.
100%. I was going to bring that up too.
As the easy trade.
Yes.
And I saw another trade pop up. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of you, Bob. But
no worries.
Jonathan Taylor and Justin Jefferson in 2 seconds for Higgins, Javonte, and 4 firsts. Sounds crazy, but I'm taking the package. I'm taking Higgins, Javonte, and 4 firsts next year because you're going to set your team up for incredible success long term.
4 first-round picks.
Do that. Get those first-round picks next year. If the rest of your team is trash and you're rebuilding, move off those 2 guys. I know they're incredible, but move off of them, and you still get Higgins and Javonte, who are 2 top young assets, plus all those first-round picks.
Good deal. All right. Thoughts on Garrett Wilson? I also saw this video. Saw a video of him in training camp running around, and he kept slipping and looked clumsy and dropped the ball at the end. I know we don't want to overreact to these types of videos, got to rely on the talent, but that's something with Garrett Wilson that's always kind of been interesting to me, watching him kind of sometimes slipping all over his routes. And just, I think it's part of him just, he's kind of a controlled chaos when he's at his best. But when he's not, that's when you see things like this. And that's what kind of worries me with him. It's not anything I'm going to go sit and fade the guy or anything like that. But it's just, one of those things that I'd like to see get cleaned up. He's a rookie, after all, coming out of Ohio State, and what we thought we liked of him on film. You'd think that'd be a little more clean right now, but who knows? We'll see what happens with him in my opinion, at least in Garrett Wilson.
He's
Don't
going to be
overreact.
fine. He's going to be fine. Don't
Don't worry
overreact.
yet.
Dominic, I would like you to go run 10 routes right now. If you don't slip on one of them, I will give you $5. I promise you.
That's not comparable, Chev.
I think Dominic, I think he might be a little athletic. I think he knows his route running. That's why he posted this question, Bob. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Who has a better fantasy season, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, or Trey Lance? Seen the OTA inaccuracy issue on Wilson, but I feel that is likely smoke. But still, thoughts on these three?
Rank these guys. Trey Lance going to have the best season because he has the most upside and he has the highest floor because of his rushing. And then Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, I kind of have pretty similar. Zach Wilson, more upside. Trevor Lawrence, better floor. That's my answer.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think I think that's right where I'm at as well. I think Trey Lance, as long as he's starting, man, I've watched him play. He's not going to get sacked a lot. I feel like he can run like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that upside, man, is going to be huge for fantasy. I mean, look at Jalen Hurts. Mike loves Jalen Hurts, and
So much.
he's a top 5 guy when he's rushing the football, and I think that's what Trey Lance can do.
It's my favorite person on the planet. He's great.
What about
All
Gary?
right, what do you guys think I could get for Keenan Allen? Maybe I trade away Allen and a 2022 third for a late 23 first and the 203 this year in one quarterback PPR. Chev, you were just talking up going to buy Allen. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I love Keenan Allen. I just know he's going to get peppered with 150 targets. And like that, for me, if you're contending, you probably shouldn't move Keenan Allen. You probably want to hang on to him and just stay at peace with it and know that you got Justin Herbert throwing the football. Honestly, man, if you can get a first for him, if you're trying to rebuild and you need to get off of him, you think it's time, and you think he's going to hurt your team, he's going to make your team too good, I would be fine going for a first-round pick, man. I feel like there's a lot of value that's going to be in next season. 203, I feel like you can get like a Rashad White, or there's wide receivers that are falling if James Cook and Isaiah Spiller are going at the 110. So, I mean, I don't mind it. I think if you're competing, you keep Keenan Allen. If you had to get rid of him, I don't think it's a bad haul for him. The 2022 third, I don't think is going to be anything exciting. So I don't hate the deal. I think you did okay with it.
All right. What are some thoughts? What are some thoughts on Gabe Davis going into year 3 after his explosive playoffs? For me personally, I think maybe we finally see some, solid performance from him that's at least consistent. I don't think you're going to get 4 touchdown games out of him ever. Probably not. I don't think we're going to get anywhere between that. What'll likely happen is it's going to be somewhere between Gabe Davis truthers and people who hate Gabe Davis, and it's going to be somewhere in the middle. So nobody's actually right. I think that's what's going to happen, except me, because I just said that. So,
I will say in
any other?
baseball, Crowder is probably going to do better than we're all expecting. Crowder is probably super cheap right now. I don't know if I want to, have to worry about setting him in my lineup because I think he's going to be inconsistent. But if you draft Jamison Crowder in the late rounds of your best ball draft, I bet you he will be in a starting lineup at least 5-6 weeks. I think there's going to be weeks that he has 8 receptions for 100 yards and a touchdown. I bet you there'll be at least 3 or 4 weeks like that because we saw Cole Beasley 2 years ago do really well out of the slot with Josh Allen, and we got Stephon Diggs there and Gabriel Davis. But Jamison Crowder's good, and he's not that old yet, and he's a PPR machine when he's healthy.
Yeah, I agree, Nate, because the tag team Dynasty League that we're doing, I got Jamison Crowder at the 2301, And I feel like that was good value there. And I think that takes away a little bit from a Gabriel Davis. Now, I know a lot of people are big fans of Gabriel Davis on the team. They think this is going to be a year he takes over. But for fantasy, I don't think that he's going to have that, proverbial breakout game from that playoff from the 3-4 touchdowns to that's going to carry over consistently from week to week. So I think it's going to be more of a kind of like a boom bust thing. And they have a lot of talent there. Don't forget, Stephon Diggs is also there as well. He's going to take a boatload of the targets on that team as well. And, they did get James Cook. They think they're going to use him as a third down back. So, he's going to be okay. I just think, you just temper expectations from what we saw last.
Fort Knox coming at you live with 150 targets this season.
Get out of here.
Thank you.
That's not happening.
Bob, Dawson Knox is going to go ham this year, bro.
No, he's not. No,
I just wanted to start.
He's going to be this year's Robert Tunyon. He's going to be this year's Robert Tunyon. Yes, Bob, he is.
Put on the board, boys. Put on the board.
Put on the board.
Sean, put it on the board when you watch this back.
If Dawson Knox is a tight end 1, I want you to write it on your whiteboard in the back.
It's not. He's not even going to be top 7 tight end this year. I'd be surprised if he was top 10 tight end this year.
And top 10 is easy.
I'll put top 10.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he was top 10. All right. Yeah. Am I crazy for considering trading Jonathan Taylor and Justin Jefferson with 23 seconds next year in 2 separate trades to acquire Higgins, Javonte, and 4 firsts next year? So essentially, go ahead. Yeah.
We already answered this one. We said take it. We said get Higgins, Javonte, and 4 firsts.
Bob, we actually we got to end it here. We're at an hour. So
we're almost done.
Bob, if you want to keep going, you keep going, man. Don't listen. Make old grouchy Mike leave.
I'll keep going.
Right.
Come on, Mike.
I'll keep going.
For the people.
All day.
For the people.
All day.
I got a good IKEA.
I got to pay $5 of gas to our boy Dominic soon, so I'm all in.
I want to see Dominic's route tree. We're going to put it up on
Dominic, send the video, bro, if you read the routes.
Send a vid. But listen, any questions that we didn't get to, what we're going to do is I'm going to go back. I'm going to pluck them out of here. Maybe we can make a YouTube mailbag video for everything that we didn't get to today. I will get together with Bob on that. Bob, what do you think? Does that sound good?
Sure.
Bob is not hating all tight ends.
I don't hate all tight ends. I hate Dawson Knox. That's my issue. It's not that I hate Dawson Knox.
Everybody hate him too last year too.
Whenever low volume tight ends who score lots of touchdowns, I do too.
I just don't like overhyped players that people want to tout as high end tight end ones. That's my issue. Bob. No, he's mediocre at best. At best. So
you're hurting.
Mike, we'll end it on this. My concern is with OJ Howard there, it's definitely going to dip into Dawson Knox's targets. So I understand that OJ Howard's not an elite tight end, but he is there. So look, thank you. You were there. Now you're here hanging out with us. We appreciate that. Bob, appreciate you. Nate, Chev, Pork, appreciate all you guys. And of course, all our subscribers, all our viewers, we appreciate it. We're actually at 2.51K now, so we keep adding those subs. Tell a friend, refer a friend, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Hang out over in the Discord. Gator knows what's up, so hang out there. You get bonus podcasts as well, get some written content sprinkled in every now and again. We're always trying our best to make sure that you guys have everything that you need over there. So, Jason, thank you for hanging out with us. Does anyone else have any closing comments?
You can ask us all the questions you want once you become a Patreon.
That is true. Hit that thumbs up. James knows what's up. All right. Well, listen, if no one else has anything else, then I'll outro us here. Thank you again, everyone. Until next time, be kind. Please rewind. Thank you for watching. And thank you for subscribing.
Thanks for listening to the Dynasty Rewind. Please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. And as always, be kind. Please rewind.